Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Market Close Report for Friday, the 16th of January. Well, it ended up being a decent performance today for the Aussie market, not only today, but also over the course of the week. In fact, we had the ASX 200 on Friday lifting by 42 points. That's a gain of almost 0.5% to 8,900 points, or 8,903 to be exact. That means we're on a 5-day winning streak now. It's the first time in 8 months that's happened. We're up about 2.1% this week as well, helped in part by the materials, by consumer discretionary, financials, and also energy stocks. And the only two losers this week ended up being tech and utilities, which happen to be the two smallest of the market. We also had the ASX 200 cracking 8,900 points, which means we managed to lift to a fresh 2.5-month high, and we are closing in on that elusive record high that was last hit in October last year. So at the best levels of the day, we got to within around 2.2% of that point. Now, as far as sectors go, we had most improving today. We just had the utilities, the materials, and energy heading backwards. Can forgive materials and energy, though. I think it is a case of profit taking there. We've had some pretty significant gains. The materials in particular up about 3.7% this week, which was the best performance since around late November. And it also means that it's improved about 7.5% since the start of this month alone. We've only had 11 trading days now in Jan. We also had energy stocks heading backwards today by about 0.6%. Unsurprising, really, we had a big fall in the oil price last night, which fell by around 4.5%. And that was the biggest drop since around mid-2025. And that's partly because, for now at least, the market reckons the chances of an imminent US attack on Iran has eased a little. Now, this follows some Trump being quoted saying that he might not attack Iran after all, because he's been told the killing in Iran has stopped. And also a number of Arab governments have been quoted saying that things have de-escalated for the time being. Now, I think take all of this with a grain of salt, though, because in prior days it seemed to be a very different story, and I think it's reasonable to expect that this is going to continue to go back and forth in the days and weeks ahead. I think what it really comes down to is that escalating tensions could push oil prices higher. That could be supportive for the energy sector, and on the flip side, cooler heads could have very much the opposite effect. And when it comes to the materials, we've had some record prices coming in there for gold, silver, and copper this week, which is one reason which has been quite supportive there. As far as the winners today are concerned, though, one of the best ended up being DroneShield, which rose about 7.8%. It was selected by the Aussie government today as an approved supplier for counter-drone systems. We also had Catalyst Metals, another big standout, 14.6% higher. Now, this is a gold producer. Record quarterly production numbers are delivered yesterday, so it's continuing to enjoy that tailwind. To give you a sense of how profitable a gold miner like Catalyst can actually be at the moment, with gold prices basically at record levels, it is selling gold at an average price of about 6,300 Aussie dollars per ounce, and costs are sitting at around $6,700. So margins are quite significant. Capstone Copper, 7% higher today. It achieved its copper production goals over 2025, actually the most it's ever produced over that year. And this is at a time when copper prices are at record levels. And Paladin Energy, also another standout, lifting 4.1%. The uranium miner was on the receiving end of a broker upgrade. Now, there were still some losers on the market. Many of these, actually, the four worst performers were stocks that have done reasonably well, actually some strong gains earlier in the week. So maybe it is a case of profit taking. That included Pilbara or PLS and also Karoon Energy, both down more than 3%, and Neuren Pharmaceuticals down 2.9%. Now, keep in mind that on Wednesday, Neuren rose about 6%, and this is after on signs that sales globally for its Rett syndrome treatment could hit around $700 million in 2028. And also BHP down a little today by about 0.8%. Yesterday was making headlines because it was closing in on CBA to once again potentially become the largest stock on our market. So it's only around $4 or $5 billion away off memory. It is also up around 8% this month. So got to keep in mind it's outperformed stocks like Fortescue, which has done nowhere near as well. And it's about 12 times stronger than Rio so far this month. And that's partly because of those Glencore talks that have certainly weighed on Rio Tinto. Because if it does end up merging with Glencore, it would make it the largest stock, mining stock globally, but also would would, of course, come at a significant cost with all the investment which would be necessary. Now, if we turn our attention to currencies, we've had the Aussie dollar sitting at about 67 US cents. It did strengthen a bit against the euro and also the sterling, but it did fall a little against the Kiwi and also the Japanese yen. Now, if we look forward to next week, there is a lot to watch. Things are going to be a little quiet tonight, but keep in mind that Monday is a public holiday in the United States, so that certainly is something that could make things a little more interesting tonight as investors square their positions off potentially. Next week, all eyes will be on an update on jobs growth, which will be out on Thursday. Now, that's going to be important partly because the market is expecting a rebound in jobs growth after quite a disappointing November. So the key thing for those interested in what might happen to interest rates next month is going to be an update on inflation, quarterly inflation towards the end of this month. But if we do get a surprisingly, for example, weak read on employment this next Thursday, that could have markets just having a little bit of discussion about what's ahead in Feb. We also have plenty of quarterlies next week from the likes of BHP, Evolution, Fortescue, South32 and more. We've also got US earnings season continuing with Netflix out with some results, and there'll be even more when it comes to Chinese data on Monday and also inflation out in the US later on in the week. Now, that's a lot to digest. Have a fantastic evening, a great weekend, and we'll chat again next week.